the Phillies lose to the Astros in 6 games, despite the World Series loss, why this was still a very successful season. Also, now, what does this offseason have in store for the Phillies? I'll dive into some key free agent targets and losses for this team. This episode of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel starts right now. Everybody, and welcome into this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. I am your host, Jordan Hirsch, and now guys, before we get into this video, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. You could also follow me on Instagram. The link will be in the description below. The Phillies do come up just short, falling to the Astros in the World Series in 6 games. I mean, despite that, I think we do have to look at this season as a whole and see just how fun and successful of a season it was. This team just barely got into the playoffs. They fired their manager 51 games in. They were 22-29 at that point, 21-29 at their lowest point. Completely turned it around and then did kind of fall apart at the end there, but barely got into the playoffs. Nobody thought that they were going to beat St. Louis. What do? They sweep them. Oh, you sweep St. Louis. You're not going to beat the defending world champion Braves. What do the Phillies do? They beat them in 4 games. Oh, well, now you've got to play the Padres. Padres just beat the Dodgers, best team in the league. No way you're getting past that momentum. Phillies beat them in 5. And then the Astros, undefeated. Phillies have no chance. They're getting swept by Houston. And the Phillies take them to 6 games. Astros only outscored the Phillies by a combined total of 4 runs in this series. Phillies put up a real good fight against a much better team in Houston, quite frankly. Houston won 106 games this year. Phillies only won 87. And the fact that the Phillies were able to hand them their first 2 and only 2 losses of these playoffs is it's just very impressive just by this team. Phillies did have a 2-1 lead in the series and kind of fell apart at the end. The offense was only able to muster 3 runs and 9 hits over their final 3 games. So let's take a look back at the World Series. It started with Game 1 back in October, as the Phillies ended up taking that one 6-5. They trailed 5-0 after 3, and it kind of looked like, oh boy, here we go. Aaron Nola was not sharp. However, the offense came up clutch, and Nick Castellanos single and Alec Bohm double cut the lead to 5-3. And in the very next inning, JT Realmuto hit a 2 RBI double. Phillies ended up tying the game at 5. Bullpen shut down Houston, and JT Realmuto came up big again with a 10th inning solo home run to make it 6-5. Phillies get by a scare in the bottom of the 10th and take Game 1 6-5. Houston then got out to another 5-0 lead in Game 2, and this time was able to hold it as the Phillies offense sputtered against Framber Valdez. Phillies lose that game 5-2, but then they return home and come out mashing. Lance McCullers was, I believe, tipping his pitches in that Game 3 win for the Phillies as they smash 5 home runs off of them en route to a 7-0 win. And that's kind of where the wheels came off, though, as the very next night the Phillies got no hit, just the 3rd no-hitter in MLB postseason history, and the 2nd at Citizens Bank Park, as Christian Javier and company combine for the first ever combined no-hitter in the playoffs as the Astros win 5-0. Astros would then barely take Game 5 3-2 in Philly. Phillies did have their chances late in that game. Kyle Schwarber ended up getting robbed, of course, by Trey Mancini over at first in the 8th after Brandon Marsh struck out with runners on the corners. And then JT Realmuto just missed a potential series-shifting extra base hit, but the Westchester kid, Chas McCormick, made that leaping catch at the wall. That preserved Houston's win. They take a 3-2 lead in the series with a 3-2 win. And then Saturday, Phillies looked like that maybe they were going to be able to force a Game 7. It was 0-0 going into the 6th inning, and that is when Kyle Schwarber took Framber Valdez deep for the first time. First time Framber Valdez gave up a home run at Minute Maid Park since July 3rd with that Kyle Schwarber home run. Phillies took that 1-0 lead. However, a big 450-foot Yordan Alvarez home run in the bottom half of that inning gave the Astros a 3-1 lead. Christian Vasquez would follow with an RBI single later on. Astros win that game by that score 4-1 and win the World Series. The first World Series that was won at home by the home team since 2013 when the Boston Red Sox did it. And I think that there are some people definitely out there questioning Rob Thompson's decision to go take Zach Wheeler out after just 5 1/3. There were runners in the corners and 1 out at that point. Yordan Alvarez coming up to the plate. He brings in Jose Alvarado, who gives up the 3-run home run. I could see why people would be upset, obviously. It is kind of reminiscent of Blake Snell in 2020 in Game 6 against the Dodgers, when Kevin Cash infamously took him out of that game and the Dodgers would go on to win. I was okay with them taking Wheeler out. I mean, I think going into the game, I think we all knew Wheeler would have a very short leash, especially after his Game 2 outing, which was not that good. Rob Thompson has played the matchups all year long, and he went to it again there. It just didn't work out. I think Rob Thompson just continued to do what got his team to that point, and that's why I'm okay with him going to Jose Alvarado in that situation. It's just Alvarado kind of left Alvarez a cookie down the middle, and he made him pay. There's not much you could really do about it. But all that being said, so Phillies losing 6 games. Again, all that being said, I still think this team has so much to be proud of. They are National League champs. We get to raise a banner on opening day next season. We will have a blue 2022 banner out there in left field, and then in center field, a blue 2022 flag. This team will always be remembered. There will be, I'm sure, alumni weekends in the future where this team is remembered. We remember the 93 team. Of course, they did not make it all the way and win the World Series. So I do think that this 2022 team will certainly be remembered in the city for a long, long time. This month of October is just so fun on so many levels. Honestly, with the Phillies winning every game but 2 at home in the playoffs, that Citizens Bank Park was absolutely rocking. It was electric. I was there for 1 game in each series. It was something. If they make it if you didn't go this year and they make it to the playoffs in 2023, I highly recommend you go. It is like noise and like you would never believe down there when this team is going good in the playoffs. So yeah, still a lot to be proud of. We still are National League champs, reigning National League champs, and that's what every team now is going to have to look out for next season. Whenever another team plays the Phillies, they're maybe thinking, oh gosh, we have to go play the National League champs now, reigning National League champs. So yeah, I think that this team, certainly a lot to be proud of. I will wear this shirt throughout the offseason proudly because the Phillies are those National League champs. And yeah, I mean, they deserve every bit of credit because they completely turned their season around. Just so much to be proud of for this team on so many levels. And I'm so glad they were able to give this city, at a time where maybe the city really needed it, a very fun playoff run throughout the month of October and into the month of November. And now that this season is over, it is time to turn our attention towards the off-season, as this should be a very busy and intriguing off-season for the Phillies, as there are a ton of free agent targets out there that I'm sure fans and front office members are certainly going to be looking towards. Let's start with maybe some of the news that broke today, as the Phillies did pick up their $16 million club option on starting pitcher Aaron Nola, so Nola will be back for 1 more year. And we'll see if there's a long-term contract extension in the cards. I'm not too sure if there will be during the offseason, just because I think that John Middleton and Dave Dombrowski are going to look to go spend some big bucks elsewhere. There might be one coming up during the upcoming 2023 regular season for Nola, but time will tell there. Zach Eflin did opt out of his contract, so Zach Eflin is now a free agent. It would be pretty cool to see the Phillies re-sign him. I would like to re-sign him, especially as a bullpen guy. I just think that's less stress on his knees. But if he seeks to try to play elsewhere, that is his choice. And honestly, I wasn't too sure what Zach Eflin would do. I thought I could see him kind of opting out or opting in. He does opt out. And the Phillies right now are left with just 3 starting pitchers on their roster, really, in Wheeler, Nola, and Suarez. So starting pitching is certainly going to be a place where the Phillies are going to look to improve. They did lose, of course, Zach Eflin. They also lost Noah Syndergaard and Kyle Gibson here to free agency. I think it would be really interesting to see if the Phillies re-sign Noah Syndergaard. I have wanted to re-sign Syndergaard ever since we traded for him, just because there are members of this organization that do think he can get his velocity back up to 97, 98. And if he can do that, I mean, he's going to be probably another one of these premier starting pitchers in this league again. And even if he can't, he really seemed to figure it out in the postseason, had an ERA below 250 for the playoffs, and that was just with being a finesse pitcher, painting the corners, getting that sinker ball down in the zone. So it was really nice to see Syndergaard be able to do that, and I do think that even if he cannot get his velocity back up to where it used to be, he could still be a solid 4 or 5 in this rotation. There are some other free agents that I'm looking at there for starting pitching. Of course, the big guy out there is going to be Carlos Rodon. I don't know if the Phillies will really go after him. Of course, there were rumors that they went after him at the trade deadline, and a deal kind of fell through at the last minute. However, Rodon will command a lot of money. He's going to get a big contract. He was second in the National League in strikeouts this season, with 237, only behind Corbin Burns. So he's definitely going to command some money, and I think the Phillies may want to try to spend money elsewhere. So Carlos Rodon, I think, is a little bit of a stretch. Guys that I think are maybe more realistic are Tyler Anderson, who of course could have been a Philly in 2021, and a deal fell through at the last minute. He really figured it out with the Dodgers this year, posted some incredible numbers, the best numbers of his career. Another guy is Jamison Tyone, right-handed pitcher there from New York. Another guy who's kind of figured it out up in New York there. I think he would be a pretty good back-of-the-line starter on this team. And then Andrew Heaney is another guy who I think would be a little bit more risky. However, I do not think that he would cost nearly as much as Anderson or Tyone would be. And again, another guy that maybe could complement the top three of Nola, Wheeler, and Suarez at the back end of this rotation. Turning now to the offensive side of things, there are certainly some offensive firepower out there this offseason. I think most notably, at least for Phillies fans, is shortstop Trey Turner from the Dodgers. Of course, him and Bryce Harper know each other from their time with the Nationals. And I think that Trey Turner is probably number one right now on the Phillies wish list for front office and for fans. He's a guy who will consistently hit 300. He'll give you some power. He'll give you probably 20 to 30 home runs a year. This year he hit 298 with 21 home runs, and that's more of a down year for him. So if you can get Trey Turner over here, that would be something special. There are also other shortstops out there on the market. If the Phillies are not able to go get Trey Turner, there's Carlos Correa, who opted out of his contract in Minnesota today. Xander Bogaerts is another one up in Boston, and then Dansby Swanson down in Atlanta. I think Dansby Swanson would be the most risky out of those guys, just because he will strike out a lot, and he is historically a slow starter. So I do think Dansby, especially for the money that he's going to end up getting, I think Dansby Swanson would be a little bit more of a risk. My number one guy is Trey Turner. I think a lot of fans' number one guy is Trey Turner. Of course, Phillies are going to be in need of a shortstop most likely, because it is expected they will not pick up Gene Segura's contract. He does have a club option for 2023, but the Phillies do think that they can go out and get one of these top-level shortstops. I'm sure that they will not hesitate to go do that, and if they are able to land one, Bryson Stott will most likely move to second base, where he played a couple months there while Gene Segura was on the IL this year, and Bryson Stott played very well over there at second base. I really do think that he has a future in this league as either a shortstop or a second baseman, and I think if it's with the Phillies, it's probably going to be a second baseman, because I really do think that the Phillies are going to go out and sign one of these shortstops. I'm not sure if it's going to be Trey Turner. I think Trey Turner makes the most sense. I think it is most likely going to be Trey Turner. However, I could see there was been reports that the Phillies and Xander Bogaerts have some mutual interest there too. Of course, Carlos Correa is probably going to be the most expensive out of those guys. So I do think that it'll be really interesting to see. This is going to be a really intriguing offseason. It really is. And I think the Phillies are going to keep us glued the entire way through. Free agency begins in just a few days on Thursday, November 10th. There certainly will be some players who come off the board then. We'll see if the Phillies make any moves. If not, most likely these Scott Boras clients, the big Scott Boras clients at least, are going to rate it out till the end. That's just how Scott Boras has really managed his entire career as an agent. We saw it with Bryce Harper. Of course, we saw it with Manny Machado. We saw it with all these big Boras guys. They always kind of wait till the end just so they can get the most amount of money. So I do think the Phillies, they may make some moves early, but I do think that if the Phillies are going to go out and sign some of these big name guys, it is going to come down the line, probably in February as spring training approaches. So yeah, do not expect maybe any big moves coming up this week, but maybe as the offseason goes on, it's certainly going to be something to keep an eye on. Of course, another kind of elephant in the room for this Phillies offseason is what they will do with Rhys Hoskins, who has 1 year remaining on his rookie contract. Of course, Hoskins came up with some clutch clutch homers in this postseason. He's been a consistent power hitter his entire time here. However, the defense, especially this year, really struggled, really in the postseason. It was glaring that Rhys Hoskins' defense might cost him his job here in Philly going into next season. And if it does, I mean, it is definitely going to be interesting to see what the Phillies do there, because I could see the Phillies keeping Rhys Hoskins, and I could see them trading him. And if they do trade him, you would need a first baseman. And most likely you're not going to go trade first baseman for first baseman. If the Phillies do trade Hoskins, I think it'll be more for starting pitching or relief pitching depth, maybe even for some prospects so they could flip next season. But if you do end up trading Rhys Hoskins, you're going to need a first baseman. I do really like Derek Hall. I think that if he can work with Kevin Long this coming in for a full season, if the Phillies do go that way, I think that Derek Hall could become a really good hitter. We saw glimpses of it this season. When Bryce Harper went down, Derek Hall came in and filled in real nicely. Of course, he's not going to be Bryce Harper, but he did provide a lot of power out of the DH spot. If the Phillies do not decide to go with Derek Hall, there will be some first basemen on the market. I think a lot of these guys are high-risk, high-reward type of players. A few of them being Anthony Rizzo is going to be a free agent, along with Jose Abreu, who's kind of getting older. I think Rizzo probably, I mean, on paper might be the best player, but I think that for the money that he's going to command, he's getting up there in age. I think that he would be more of a risk, and I think it's high risk, high reward with really any of these guys. I don't think I'd really target Jose Abreu. He's going to enter his age 36 season, and he did not have the best season with Chicago this year. Then a couple of Astros are going to hit the free agent market as well, Trey Mancini being one of them. We kind of saw him in the playoffs this year. It was not pretty, just the one hit that came in Game 6 of the World Series. So I think Trey Mancini, another guy, high risk, high reward. Then Yuli Gurriel, who left Game 5 with that knee injury. He'd be somebody I think the Phillies could target. However, he is going to command a lot of money, and if the Phillies do want to go out and get Yuli Gurriel, you're going to have to give up either that shortstop, whether that be Turner, Bogarts, or anyone else, or at least that high-quality shortstop, or you're going to have to give up some pitching. Maybe that be starting pitching, and you hope that you can develop Andrew Painter, Griff McGarry, and Mick Abel, get them up here as soon as possible next season. However, I don't think the Phillies want to rush any of those guys, and that's kind of why I think that Yuli Gurriel probably is not in the cards, just because it's you can't have everything. You can't have Gurriel, Trey Turner, and starting pitching. It's just the Phillies are not going to go that high over the luxury tax. They will go over the luxury tax more than they did this past offseason, I do believe. I think John Middleton, now that his team has gotten a taste of the playoffs, and not only the playoffs, but the World Series, he definitely wants to get back there. Him and Dave Dombrowski certainly are two guys that want to win, and I think they will be willing to go over the luxury tax even more. I just don't see them entering maybe that Steve Cohen type territory. If you've made it this far, comment down below your ideal Phillies offseason. I want to hear from you guys, just see kind of where the meter is at in terms of what some of you guys want the Phillies to do this offseason. So comment that down below, some players you'd like to see the Phillies go out and target. Alright, that is going to wrap things up for this edition of the Phillies Sports Spot YouTube channel. Again, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. I will be back to posting every Saturday this upcoming week with an Eagles-Commanders preview. So yeah, make sure you guys are also following me on Instagram. The link will be down in the description below, or you can just look me up. It's at Philly Sports Spot. That's PhillysSportSpot. So just one S between sport and spot. Until next Saturday, guys, have a good week. And remember, the Phillies are still National League champions.